This time, please join me in welcoming some of the artists who brought this film to life. I want to start with the film's writer, director, producer. He probably also did craft services. Please welcome Joel Coen. Also joining us is a four-time Oscar-winning actor and producer. She's also a producer on this film. Please welcome Frances McDormand. Everyone has to talk that entrance now, I just want you to know. An actor you've of course seen in The Heights and Straight Outta Compton. Please welcome Hawkins. This is an actor I've been lucky enough to see him on stage, but you can currently see him in Cowboy Bebop and The Boys. Please welcome Alex Hassell. For Queen's Gambit, which, believe it or not, was her first on-screen role. Please welcome Mrs. Ingram. Finally, we have a two-time Academy Award-winning actor. I think you're going to hear a lot about Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on a beautiful movie. I think the highest compliment I can pay this movie is I didn't think I liked this play, and then I saw this film, and I realized I've just seen bad productions. This is an audience of your fellow SAG-AFTRA actors, so I always like to start by asking, how did you get your SAG card? What was the job that brought that to you?
It's so long ago. They still got that first joint and all that. See? Yeah, we had that. Remember that? Do you remember that? When you like something must join. Yeah. They still have must join. Not for I forgot. It must join. Yeah, I got my card now. What was the question?
You have like 3 SAG awards. You better have
I hope so. I don't remember. I did a TV movie in college. I was still in college. I got the job where I met my wife. And, but I might have got my card on a commercial. You did, make a commercial.
I didn't know you did commercials. Is there one out there with fun?
Whatever they did, shoot, come on now. This is Paul's Fish Sticks.
A product I believe in. Moses, what about for you?
It was Queen's Gambit.
It was Queen's Gambit. Wow. So, your first professional acting job, you get an Emmy nomination. It's the biggest thing on TV. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's really crazy.
Alex, for you?
It was a film called Suburban Carver.
That was your first movie here?
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I felt pretty good about it at the time, I'll be honest.
You'd probably done film because in England. Or,
yeah, some in Europe and stuff, yeah.
Corey, for you?
It was, I think it was Iron Man 3. But I was in that movie for 2 split seconds, but I got my card out. So.
Frances, for you?
Remind me, what's the question?
What was the project that brought you your SAG
card? Well, I just have to follow with the Mrs. Paul's Fish Sticks. My first commercial, no, Pabst Blue Ribbon. That would have been a nice dinner. Right? Fish sticks, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
You know how you were so poor and hungry. I got a Burger King and I didn't know you weren't supposed to eat. I'm like, oh, this is a great job, I'm gonna eat. And then they said, now we're gonna come around for coverage.
Just sitting out all day.
They didn't give you like a stick?
You know how to do that? Yeah. That bite, pull away bite. I didn't know. I'm eating.
Jill, have you ever actually acted before or like cameoed in anything? Sorry, I meant Joel.
Joel.
Oh
my God.
Oh no.
Dead.
People will have to
you all have to actually find it for yourself.
This is
I'm not going
homework.
to talk about it. Yes.
Just,
It was
just
a cameo
needless to
in a
say,
movie
he didn't get another
that
job.
I did with Sam Raimi. And it's so embarrassing that you'll have to do your own research to discover this. Yeah,
It's really that bad?
yeah.
Someone's gonna find it by the end of this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd actually love to start at the beginning with Joel, because I was thinking you've done every genre of film imaginable. It's hard to believe there's something you haven't tackled. So what interested you in wanting to adapt one of Shakespeare's most prominent tragedies?
Well, I mean, part of it is that it was something that was completely out of my wheelhouse that I hadn't thought about or tried to do in the past, and I was like, with these guys, why not? You know, it's just, you know.
I can fill in a little bit of it. You know, a couple of directors that I worked with, whose names will go unmentioned, but they were kind of good directors. And I said, I'm trying to get Joel to do a theater production of Macbeth. And they said, maybe you should let him start with something a little simpler. And I think that might have fueled this. Don't tell him not to.
Have those unnamed directors seen this film yet? Do you know?
No. He's no longer with us, but we won't get it.
Oh! I know, I feel terrible laughing, but...
No, I mean, you know, Fran was doing it on stage at one point and asked me if I would direct it on stage, and that just scared the bejesus out of me. So, I mean, I just was like, I can't do that, but I can think about it as a movie. And that's sort of what it's like.
When did it start to become a reality for you?
When did what become a reality?
You said you could think about it as a movie?
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, then I went back and reread the play and thinking about it as a movie kind of got the juices going, and then thinking about Fran and then thinking about Denzel doing it, then I was kind of all in at that point, because it was, you know, the opportunity to do it with you two guys was just, I had to do it.
So Denzel was already in, or just in your mind he was in?
Denzel was the earliest person I approached about this. So it was when Denzel said, yeah, let's do it, I would,
So this might not exist if he had said no. Well, I've been lucky enough to see you do Shakespeare on stage, and obviously you've done it on film before. What attracted you specifically to this production and this film?
Them.
Yeah.
The two of them. The both of them. Simple as that. Come on now. I may be stupid, but I'm not crazy. Joel and I, when we sat out maybe, I don't know how long ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, we just kicked tires a little bit, kind of walked away. And then when they called, I was like, oh.
Well, that's true. We had met a few years before that, and just talked in a really general way about doing something together and thinking, okay, but what? If the right, and when the right thing presents itself, I think we both knew, okay, what it would be. And
It's kind of one of those great things, and we benefited from this from going to drama school, right? You start meeting like-minded people, and you start following what they do because you're interested in doing something similar, and you have a similar language. And so even though we rehearsed, we all had kind of a similar language because we approach our process in a similar way, I think. We all have a theater background, so we have a kind of a common language.
And Frances, you've played this role on stage before, more than once, I think.
At 14 and at 56.
How different are those interpretations?
I would say
Exactly the same.
pre-puberty and post-menopausal.
The idea of doing it for a film, though, were there any adjustments you made to your performance, or do you think of it as the same?
What do you guys think?
One of the things Joel did, first of all, we got to shoot it all on sound stages. So there were, 4, 5, 6 sets. And these were gonna lend themselves to these 2, 3, and 4, 5-page scenes. So you felt like you were standing a play up in that room. Then you go over there and you felt you were the ocular room. And I remember, you know, we all got to sit down as a company the 1st of January. And we started off friends like, well, no, so-and-so's not here today, so you're gonna read that part, and you're gonna read that part. And people were like, oh, shoot. You know, started going like this, you know, trying to get their stuff together. But it really brought us together that nobody was more important than anybody else. Be ready for anything. No stick up the butt Shakespeare acting. And yeah, that came from the two of them. So we just followed their lead on that.
Was there ever a day you got to read Lady Macbeth? Because I would love to see that.
We didn't really pass those two parts around that much. Everybody else. But it was great seeing Sean Thomas last night because the actor that played Monteith in the final production played Duncan many times in the rehearsal space and kind of kicked Duncan off because Brendan wasn't with us then. It was great.
That's so cool. Alex, I've been lucky enough to see you do Shakespeare on stage. Had you ever been approached before about a film version, and what interested you specifically in this project?
I hadn't, no, I've done bits of Shakespeare. I played a Shakespearean actor in a film doing Shakespeare before. But no, I hadn't, many things interested me in this, in this film. These people, obviously the play is, the writing is good. What Joel did, once I was interested in playing Ross, no matter what Ross was like in the play, he's usually not as prominent as he is in this film. And I was just incredibly pleased and lucky and intrigued when I read the screenplay, which is an amazing adaptation, but to work out who this Ross was in Joel's story and what the purpose of him was, and why he had been sort of changed so much.
Did you know in advance that the role had been increased?
No, I think the first thing I got was just to make a tape of a couple of Ross scenes, but because, I shouldn't really admit this, but because I was like, Ross is a good partner, but can I audition for Banquo? so I auditioned for Banquo as well, and then got the screenplay. I was like, oh no, Ross is really cool. I'm really happy to play this part. But no, it said it was a more prominent role than usual, but I was like, how is that going to work? Is there a tap number? It's not cut, unfortunately.
I was going to say, I would love that, actually.
I can't tap.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Joel, how long from the time your wife convinced you to where you felt like, or from the time you read it or whatever, to where you said, I think I've cracked it, I got it?
Well, it's really interesting. It took a while. Honestly, it took a while. Because I started working my way through the play, really from the beginning. Fran was doing a movie in France at the time, and I went over with her and I thought, okay, I'll sit down and I'll start to try to imagine this as a movie. And a few weeks into sort of doing that, and I was looking at a lot of previous adaptations of the play, I thought, okay, I think I can get my head around this. I actually remember thinking, no, I think I can do this. Because I wasn't actually sure. I said, I think I can do this. It was Shakespeare being such in a way, a foreign thing to me. I wasn't sure going in. And when I got my feet wet to a certain point, I remember thinking, no, I think I can.
Was it working with Bruno?
No, it was before Bruno. But, this is just in terms of imagining it as a movie. And then there was a long process, with Bruno, before we started pre-production, the director of photography, which was, okay, well, not theoretically, what's the world we're inhabiting here on screen, but what concretely is the world? What actually are these sets? What do they actually look like? How do we actually want them to look? And that was a long and interesting process with Bruno.
When did you hit upon shooting in black and white? Was that pretty early?
That was very early, yes. That was kind of an initial decision. The decision to shoot in black and white was kind of right off the bat, this idea that, we were going to do something common to movies which just right off the bat removes you from realism, that abstracts the image somewhat, and that people are very used to, which is you take the color away. So that was quick. The idea of making it in this sort of square format that you see came a little bit later, and we were back and forth with it. But then we realized what a beautiful frame that is and format that is for close-ups on actors' faces. It just magnifies the intensity of a close-up of an actor on screen in a beautiful way, and it sort of followed from that.
May I ask him something?
Of course.
Thank you. Because this
Your
is
guys'
something that
questions are good though. Can I act in a Shakespeare movie as a trade-off?
there's something that we were talking about. Alex and I were talking about the. I think that something happened when Joel was watching the production that I did when I was 56 at Berkeley Rep, and it was not a completely successful production, but a really valiant one. But what I think he was missing in it was the close-ups, and he was wondering what might be like if you could choose to come in closer at different points, because there's so much intimacy in the scenes. When you think about the scene that we do in the bell tower, how intimate that is, and the difference it felt for me to be in that enclosed space together with Denzel, as opposed to being on a stage that had to reach the back of a house, and to be able to have that kind of complicity.
Corey?
Yeah, I was going to say there's something that goes along with that, which is easier to do in movies than it is on stage. And it's really saying the same thing that Fran just said, which is you're able to control the disclosure that you're giving to the audience as you choose. You can keep someone in shadow, or you can put them in light. You can put just the exact amount of light you want in their eyes. You can withhold that, and that in itself is a dramatic tool, right? And it's a tool that is only sort of available to you in that precise way in motion pictures. And to sort of exploit that in a version of this play, that was an exciting prospect.
Ooh, and that makes us have to trust him a lot.
Was that hard for you?
Me? No, I've been doing it for a long time.
Corey, what about for you? Because Macbeth is actually one of my favorite characters, and aside from getting to cut off Denzel Washington's head, what interested you in this role?
No, I'm first of all, the opportunity. It's so interesting that you talking about playing Banquo, because I remember actually reading in the room for Ross on the same. I was like, I really like that role. I'd love to, give it a shot. And Joe was like, let's do it. But I don't know. Macbeth for me, the opportunity to explore somebody who I think is I think Macbeth and Macbeth are two sides of the same coin, and the opportunity to kind of get inside this soldier and explore whatever that fragility is, whatever loss means. To especially, for me, I think it's all just on the page. And I was talking to someone today just about the language. There's moments in Shakespeare where the language sort of rises to the poetry that it is, but then there's also the moments when he finds out from Ross about his family, and he's literally just asking, what? My wife, my kids, this, and that fragmented sort of trying to put the pieces together. It was just incredible to kind of explore that morality in the face of so much sort of darkness, and just incredible to do it with this masterclass of actors.
And Moses, I don't mean to keep hitting this same point, but is this your first movie?
Yes.
That's amazing. How did you come to be cast?
I was on hiatus from Queen's Gambit, and I was supposed to go to New York, but New York was way too expensive, so it was cheaper for me to Airbnb in LA. And then I didn't get an appointment for it, but all of my friends had gotten an appointment for it. So I was like, I hit up my team and I was like, they're doing Macbeth, can I get an audition? It's funny, my manager, she was like, the lady is taken. I was like, no, I know, but but anyway, so.
The other lady.
Yeah. But so I ended up getting a self-tape, and then the next day I got an email that was like, oh, well, casting is going to be in LA. And so I went in, and then the day after I went in, I think I met Joel, and then I went back to Germany, and I think a couple weeks after that, I found out that I...
So just on one audition?
It was two.
Was it 2? Yeah.
One
Was
in
it 2? Did you come
The
back?
second one was just
Yeah.
a formality.
Yeah.
And shout out to Ellen Chenoweth too, our casting director. I mean, she's just incredible in terms of.
I actually want to talk about a cast member who isn't here because Catherine Hunter plays. Holy cow! So, when did you hit upon the idea to have one actor playing all the roles, and where did you find Catherine?
Well, Fran and I have known Catherine for probably 30 years. So I saw her originally in a production of the Dermot play, The Visit. And here in the United States, it was with a theater company called Complicité, a British theater company. And she was playing an 80-year-old woman in the play, and I was watching it and going, wow, where'd they find this 80-year-old woman? So fabulous. And then we went out to dinner with her afterwards, and she was like 27. She's amazing. I mean, she's just this amazing, transformative, theater beast. And so we've known her since then, and it's really like I've been waiting 30 odd years to do something with Catherine. She works constantly in the theater, and it's really hard to get her, into a production, but this was the one where I was like, come on, you gotta do this.
Yeah.
Really at the end of the day, Denzel and I want to believe that Joel did the movie because of us, but he did it because of Catherine. Smartly.
Forgive me for not knowing, does she have a background in movement? Was she in Cirque du Soleil or something?
She's worked for years and years with this particular theater company, which is very physical, right? So the stuff that they do it's started by a guy named Simon McBurney, a really great director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Simon has been working with her for all those years, and it's this very great. A lot of the productions are very. And then she did a production of the Skriker that we did, Carol Churchill play, that also was really incredibly. And something in New York called Kafka's Monkey years ago that we saw at the Baryshnikov Center, where she was playing a chimpanzee and literally like swinging from the rafters of the theater. And I mean, she's crazy, and just in terms of her physicality, in terms of what she can do.
Speaking of drama school, when I moved to London to go to drama school, the first night I turned up, a guy that I ended up living with, who was in my year, never met him before. We thought, this is our first night in London, we're going to go to drama school, should we go and see a play? What's on? I don't know, let's go to the Barbican. Oh, this play's on, let's go and see this play. And it ended up being Catherine in Scenes from an Execution by Howard Barker. And it is still one of the 3 best performances I've ever seen. She's just unbelievably powerful.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing especially because we know our audience, you guys. The idea that Catherine is being discovered in any way is slightly, what do I want to say? Thank you very much. Disrespectful. She has. Everyone knows what Catherine is capable of and what she's accomplished. So just because people are discovering what she's doing on screen doesn't mean it hasn't been happening for the last.
And when it comes, and when it comes to Shakespeare, she is the first woman to do Lear on stage. So.
And is reprising that this year on the West End.
At the Globe.
At the Globe.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Globe.
And the other great takeaway that I'm sure our audience will appreciate is that directors go to theater. Yes, people love to hear that.
You should see his collection of playbills.
Have you ever seen Denzel do Shakespeare?
It's so interesting you mention that, because the very first thing I saw Denzel and I are pretty much exactly the same age, and I remember going to the theater in the 80s, and the first time I saw Denzel was in a Soldier's Story. Soldier's Play. It wasn't a Soldier's Play. A Soldier's Play. The Negro Ensemble Theater Company, right? Yes. And I was like, before movies, before seeing him in movies, before anything, and I was watching this play going, who is this guy? And that was 1980, what was it?
40 years ago, right
now.
This is such a fantastic ensemble, and all of the characters work so well together. And Frances and Denzel, you really do feel like a long-term married couple for all the good and bad that entails. A slightly messed up couple, but I like it. I'm curious, you knew each other before making the movie. No, you didn't know each other at all? Oh my gosh.
Not know each other. No.
Right. How did you sort of build that relationship, or is that just acting?
Well, you started asking questions. What you said? You said I asked you, what did you say I asked you?
How did we meet?
How did we meet?
Oh!
Go ahead.
So I said, well, that Shakespeare guy wrote another play called Romeo and Juliet. They were in love. Their parents didn't want them to be together, but they stayed. They got married, and then they committed suicide. Well, what if they didn't? And ended up us. That was kind of what we kind of built on. But you know, something else I think that I was thinking about when the three of us, when Joel and Denzel and I first started working together, that it was an interesting passage because we were working on the play, but we were also figuring out our power dynamic. Because there was times in that room where I'm thinking, are these two guys going to gang up on me? And then there were the other times where I'm sure Joel was thinking, I've got these two actors, how am I going to deal with them when they start ganging up on me? And I'm sure that Denzel at some point thought, they're a married couple, I'm going to have to deal with their intimate, conversation.
And he's the editor.
And with the editor.
No, I did a lot of watching them, because I'm like, all right, she's a beast. That's obvious. She's bringing it. She's intense. How does he handle it? So I'd sit back, and he'd sit back. I said, oh, okay, so I got to sit back. And I'm like, you're not the sit back kind, you know that. So we fought. Wow. We did, it was powerful and clashed and loved and hated and we went to war.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, there were some great fireworks.
Literally went to war, but we, turned over a couple of tables.
Yeah, so at a certain stage you can't be polite. But it's also, I think that it is true, Denzel and Pauletta have been together as long as we have. Wow. So we all know something really, it's a process we've been through and it's in our blood and it's in our bones. So it's not that hard you don't have to search for it.
I wanted to ask Corey.
But it is amazing when you meet, and I'll shut up, if you will, not meet your match, but it's like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, okay, here we go. I mean, then you take off together. We took off together,
It's game recognizes game.
Game recognizes.
Yeah. I want to ask Corey and Moses, you can do all sorts of preparation for a role, but when you show up on these sets and you put on those amazing costumes, how much does that help you finally lock into that character?
It's everything. I mean, that's the other half of the work. I felt like with the rehearsal process and going through and having fun and being nervous and scared and all the things that you go through in a process leading up to the day. But that goes back to just working with Mary Zofries, our costume director, our costume designer, who has been working with you guys for years. I remember the first time putting on that vest and the detail work and the shoes and how that changes who this character was, and then being able to wear those shoes in rehearsal on the wooden boards, in that room that we were in for a few weeks, and then you step onto the stage and you sort of let it all go, and it was but it was just easy to fly because we were just like I said, surrounded by just genius all the time. So they sat back and watched, and we sat back and watched. I mean, I just remember me and Moses would just sneak on set and just be watching them study each other and learning and just being a part of that process. And it was just dope. It was just dope. I mean, it's a gift that not many, people are blessed to see. And I'm just really fortunate to have shared in just a little, to pull back the sort of curtain a little bit and go and play, you know.
And Moses, I know you're a professional, but I would want to steal your outfit so badly.
Yeah, I feel like it's like making a pie. Like everything folds together so beautifully when you can, you know. I mean, putting that on, I immediately just felt so regal. And like I feel like I said this before, but like to be able to like put on period clothes and not be a slave, but be, you know, a lady, it just felt really, really dope. And of course I have to echo Corey in that like this experience is just one like no other. And every time I sit on stage next to these people, I'm like, God, please don't let them forget who I am.
Let me just add also, Fran and Joel set the stage for us. We, for 3.5 weeks, whatever, we had a big giant room, and all actors were related to this, especially theater actors, where he taped out all this. Yeah, so we could walk over to that, and we rehearsed this part over there. So we had, I think, almost all the sets in one big giant room, and he had a box over here, and a chair and a box.
But when you're talking about the design, you know, the costumes and everything, you know, when we saw your tape, you know, when you auditioned, when you met, whatever you want to call it, you had done your hair in a very specific way, and that just kind of set the style for what women in our world look like. That's the way they did their hair, was that way. So it wasn't like we weren't asking you to come over to our side. We wanted to be your side with the hairdos.
You know, we were talking about this yesterday. That was one of the few auditions where someone comes in and you've never seen them before, you don't know who they are, you've never seen any of their work, right? And she did that scene and just reading it for us. And, you know, it doesn't happen very often, but this was a sort of absolute sort of example of this. You going, wow, okay, well that is it. Who is this?
Yeah, and I think I have to add something to it too, because there was something that happened for a lot of us. It was kind of like with Catherine, but it was also something that took us back to when we started in Blood Simple together. Because I was 24, he was 27. So when I was at the monitor watching this one camera move that Joel was doing with Bruno and with Moses, that was really kind of difficult, and you had to navigate this technical move inside a very important emotional moment in the scene that you had figured out. You had it from day one, but you had to then take on this whole new technical aspect because you were in a movie. And I was sobbing at the monitor because I remember what that felt like, to have to all of a sudden give over the control to this technical thing. And it was beautiful.
It just was like, just want to reiterate, this wasn't just movie. I have so many more questions I want to ask, but I know you all have to be somewhere. I love this ensemble, I love this movie. I wish you could do a sequel, but I guess I'm recording at the end. But please, Shakespeare has a lot of plays. Please do some more. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you all.